All right, so get ready because we're going deep today.
Deep.
Yeah, deep dive into the idea of weaving.
Okay.
You've been looking at a lot of different sources for this.
Yeah.
From like ancient myths and stories and all the way up to modern philosophy. And
Yeah.
we're going to try to connect the threads here.
Yeah.
So, really kind of dig into what it means and see if we can figure out like how weaving is kind of this metaphor for like understanding the universe and even ourselves.
You got it. And it's pretty cool how something so basic,
Right.
like weaving, has really stuck with us
Right.
through time and across cultures.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just yarn and looms.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about like the fabric of existence here.
Right.
So where do we even like begin to unravel this whole thing?
Well, I'm curious, have you ever thought about the connection between text and the actual act of weaving?
I haven't, to be honest.
It's interesting because the words text and textile
Oh.
both come from this Latin word texere.
Mm-hmm. Which means to weave.
Oh, wow.
Even the Sanskrit word sutra,
Okay.
which refers to a thread or a collection of aphorisms like sayings and stuff,
Yeah.
has that same root.
Okay. So there's like a really deep connection there between like language
Yeah.
and textiles.
Big time.
It's almost like our ancestors saw storytelling as a form of weaving itself.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
they were stringing together ideas and using that to create meaning.
Yeah.
And this metaphorical connection, it's not just in one culture. Think about like
Yeah.
when people say spinning a yarn or fabricating a story.
Oh, yeah.
Those phrases show how much weaving is really a part of how we think.
So it really is woven into like the way we think about things.
Totally.
It's not just about the actual like physical act.
Right.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how weaving goes way beyond just making cloth.
For sure.
It's about bringing things together to make something whole.
It is. And that brings us to...
This really interesting concept, the cosmic loom.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Indra's net?
I think I've heard the name.
Yeah.
But I don't remember like the details.
Okay, so imagine like a giant net.
Yeah.
And every single point on the net is a shimmering pearl.
Mm-hmm.
Each pearl reflects all the other pearls,
Okay.
and they're all connected.
Right.
It's a really beautiful image. And this is how Buddhist philosophy illustrates how everything's connected
Wow.
in the universe.
So it's not just that things are connected.
Yeah.
It's that they're like constantly impacting
Yes.
and reflecting each other.
Absolutely.
Okay,
That's dynamic.
That's a pretty crazy image.
It is a pretty wild image.
Right.
But it's not just Buddhism.
Okay.
Ancient Chinese philosophy used weaving as a metaphor too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to describe both the cosmos and like the order of society.
Mm.
So it's not just about these individual threads, but
No.
about how they all come together to form like a bigger picture. Yeah.
And that's where weaving comes in,
Yeah.
right? It becomes this metaphor for creation, like
Yeah.
bringing order out of all the chaos.
So the universe and human society, they aren't
Yeah.
like separate. They're kind of all intertwined.
They are. They're constantly shaping each other.
It's making me think about like those giant historical tapestries,
Uh-huh.
like the Bayeux tapestry. They were depicting like battles and coronations.
Yes.
And it's like they were really trying to capture this like grand interconnectedness.
We're weaving together all
Yeah.
these different events and people and
to
ideas.
tell this story about the world.
Exactly.
But it's not all about like creation and orders.
That's a good point.
There's also like destruction and change that are woven into existence.
And it reminds me of a story about the Buddhist masters Tilopa and Naropa.
So Tilopa wanted to teach Naropa about impermanence and enlightenment.
Okay.
So he had Naropa bring him cloth and some embers,
Okay.
and then dramatically set the cloth on fire.
Whoa, wait.
Yeah.
He set it on fire. That's
pretty intense.
yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened then?
Well, the cloth burned away,
Okay.
but the fascinating part is what was left behind.
Yeah.
This delicate ash pattern that perfectly preserved the weave of the original fabric.
So even though the cloth was gone, the essence remained.
Exactly.
Wow. That's kind of a beautiful,
Yeah.
but also kind of a scary thought at the same time.
It is. And it's a really powerful image
Yeah.
for how our experiences kind of shape us.
Yeah.
Even when things change or end, they leave behind this imprint, this ash pattern that becomes part of who we are.
So it's not about like forgetting the past.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how it's
So
become
woven in.
a part of who we are today.
Right.
Okay, that's a new way to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's made me realize that, like, even though we've been talking about this as this big concept, traditionally weaving has been associated with women.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and that actually leads us to a really interesting discussion about weaving and the feminine principle.
But weaving has always seemed like such a practical
Yeah.
everyday activity.
Right.
So how did it get linked to these like powerful feminine figures and these ideas of creation?
Well, think about
Okay.
the Greek fates.
Yeah.
These powerful women who spin and measure and cut the threads of destiny,
Right.
or goddesses like Arachne from Greek mythology or Freya
Right.
in Norse mythology, both deeply associated with weaving. Weaving often represents a feminine form of creation.
So it's a different way of looking at the creative process.
It is.
Maybe it's like a more organic approach compared to
Yeah.
what we normally think of
It is.
when we hear the word creation.
Yeah. And it makes us think about, the different ways that people have understood creativity throughout history.
Wow. Okay. This is so cool.
It is pretty cool.
We've gone from language to the cosmos to goddesses, all through weaving.
And that's just the beginning.
Right. But I'm curious about how this grand idea of weaving,
Yeah.
how does it relate to like my individual life?
That's a great question. And that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore how each of us
Yeah.
is a weaver in our own way,
Yeah.
creating our own realities
Okay.
through our experiences and our interactions with the world.
I can't wait to get into that.
Yeah.
This is already making me see the world in a whole new way.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Pretty fascinating stuff.
It is.
Okay, so we've been talking about, weaving as this big cosmic
Right.
thing and
Yes.
how it applies to, history and society.
Yeah.
But now I kind of want to zoom in on the individual. Like how do we weave our own lives?
I'm ready. I'm all ears for that.
It's one thing to talk about like these big historical tapestries.
Right. Yeah.
But what about the tapestry of my life?
Yeah. How do I even like begin to see that?
Well, there's this philosopher, Alan Watts.
Oh, yeah.
I love Alan Watts.
Yeah.
And
My brain does a happy dance when I hear him.
Yeah. He's great. He described the world as a tapestry
Okay.
of sensations and meaning.
Okay.
And he said it's our own perception
Yeah.
that actually does the weaving.
Oh, wow.
So what does he say about all this?
Well, he talks about our senses,
Right.
like sight and sound and touch,
Okay.
as being the kind of the warp, the foundation of our experience.
Okay.
And then the woof,
Okay.
or the threads of meaning that we create that make it a tapestry.
Okay.
He says that, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he says our brain and the world.
Are inseparable.
Okay.
Like we're constantly
Yeah.
weaving together what we sense with what we make it mean.
It's not just what's happening to me.
Right.
It's how I'm interpreting it
Totally.
that makes me like the weaver and the tapestry
Yeah.
at the same time.
It is kind of a trippy thought.
It is a trippy thought.
Yeah. And it's not like weaving on a flat loom,
Okay.
It's more like weaving in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
Constantly unfolding.
So it's always growing and changing.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's a lot to picture. Yeah.
It is.
Like my life is this, like ever-growing, multi-layered
Yeah.
tapestry.
Exactly.
Okay. And that brings us back to that idea of like interconnectedness.
Yes.
Like we're not just watching this woven world.
Right.
We are participating.
We are actively
It's
participating.
creation.
Yes. And every choice we make, every interaction,
Okay.
we're adding a new thread.
Whoa. So even small decisions.
Yes.
Like what I have for breakfast this morning.
Even that.
That's adding
It's all part of it.
to this giant tapestry.
Uh-huh.
That feels like a lot of pressure.
Well, it's not about pressure.
But-
It's about awareness.
Okay.
Think of it as you have this incredible power to shape your own reality.
Okay, that makes me think about all those myths and stories,
Uh-huh.
like about the threads of fate,
Yeah.
like Ariadne's thread.
Exactly.
Guiding Theseus through the labyrinth. It's like they were trying to tell us about the choices we make and the paths we take.
Yes.
Like we're weaving them.
Absolutely. Ariadne's thread.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
A single thread
Right.
can lead to huge changes, like the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
A small action can ripple out and just create these huge shifts.
Okay, so I'm seeing the connections here.
Good.
But if we are all weaving our destinies, does that mean there's no such thing as fate?
That is the question
Right.
that philosophers have been debating forever.
Yeah.
But there's no right answer.
Yeah.
We can believe in fate and still believe in free will.
Right.
It's a dance between the two.
It's like those what if moments in life.
Uh-huh.
Like what if I had taken that job?
Yeah.
What if I had said yes to that date?
What if? Right.
It's like all these different tapestries existing alongside the one I'm living.
The one you're living right now.
Pretty wild to think about.
It is fascinating to contemplate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really highlights the importance of being present
Okay.
in our weaving.
Okay.
Like, who are we letting into our lives? What values are we threading through our decisions?
Yeah.
What stories are we telling ourselves and the world?
So it's not just about weaving any tapestry.
No.
It's about weaving one.
It's about weaving one.
That reflects who we are.
Exactly.
Right.
But remember, weaving isn't always easy.
Oh, no.
There's going to be knots and tangles.
Yeah.
Maybe even broken threads.
Oh, yeah.
Along the way.
Life throws some curveballs.
It does.
Sometimes it feels like my tapestry is more of a, tangled mess.
Right.
Than a work of art.
Well, we all go through those moments.
Okay.
The important thing is to remember we have the power to untangle those knots.
Okay.
To mend those breaks and just keep weaving.
Okay.
We might even have to, unravel a whole section and start over.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually really reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it feels like I'm just making it worse.
Right.
When I try to fix things.
I know.
But now it's like, okay.
Yeah.
This is part of the process.
Exactly.
It's not a failure.
It's all part of the process.
Yeah. Life is about weaving and unweaving.
Exactly.
Learning. Adapting.
And sometimes that means, letting go
right.
of patterns that no longer serve us and embracing new possibilities.
Okay, so it's about becoming more conscious.
It is about becoming a more conscious weaver.
This is making me want to learn how to weave.
Really?
Yeah, like on a real loom.
I love that.
Yeah, maybe I could create a tapestry of this conversation.
I wouldn't be surprised if you did.
There's something about the physical act of weaving that seems so meditative and grounding.
Yeah, it connects us to this long lineage of human creativity.
Yeah, and it reminds us that we're not just
thinkers.
Yeah,
makers too.
Yeah, we use our hands.
Our minds to create beauty and meaning.
Which brings us back to the metaphor.
It does.
Even if I never touch a loon, this deep dive has given me this new way to see the world.
That's great.
And appreciate the weaving that's happening all around me.
I love that.
In nature, in relationships,
Thanks.
in the stories we tell. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like we've been given a secret code, to see these patterns and connections.
I love that, yeah.
That bind us all together.
And the more we understand this language, the more we can really appreciate the beauty and complexity of of everything.
This has been mind-blowing, honestly.
It's pretty amazing stuff, right?
It's really changed my perspective on everything.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
But we're not done yet.
Oh, no, we're not done yet.
All right.
There's one final thread
I
want to explore.
All right. Okay. I'm ready for that last thread.
Yeah. So we've talked about, the cosmic loom and our own individual tapestries.
Right.
But there's another layer to this whole weaving thing.
Okay.
That I think is worth looking at.
Yeah.
The symbolic power of the thread itself.
You're right. Threads keep popping up.
Yeah.
In mythology and folklore.
They do.
Like Ariadne's thread. The red string of fate. Exactly. And those threads, they're not just there for the story.
Right.
They represent something deeper.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. Threads, they connect things. They bind things together.
Yeah.
They symbolize continuity, relationship, even destiny.
It's like they're a visual representation of all those like invisible forces that shape our lives, the connections that we make, the choices that lead us down certain paths.
Absolutely. And it's not just stories. Even today, we use threads in rituals and traditions, you know, like tying a string around your finger to remember something.
Right.
Or sewing a button for good luck.
This makes me think about how, like, fragile a single thread is.
Yeah.
But when you weave them all together,
they
create something really strong.
It's true.
And lasting.
It is a beautiful way to put it.
It's like, even though we might feel like we're just these insignificant threads, we all contribute to the strength and the beauty of the whole thing.
Yes. And that brings us back to that Quivin we've been talking about this whole time.
Right.
What kind of tapestry are we creating with our lives?
With our lives,
What threads are we choosing to connect with?
Right.
What stories are we weaving with our actions?
That is the question, isn't it? It's almost like overwhelming to think about all that responsibility.
It's a lot, but I wouldn't think of it as a burden, but as an invitation. An invitation to be more mindful of the threads we're choosing, the patterns we're creating, the impact we're having on the world around us.
So it's not just about weaving for ourselves. It's about weaving for everyone.
It's about the collective tapestry of humanity.
This whole deep dive has been amazing.
Good.
It's really made me see the world in a whole new light.
Yeah.
Like it's all connected.
It is all connected.
By these threads of meaning.
And I hope it's inspired you to keep exploring this metaphor, you know, to see the threads in your own life and in the lives of the people around you.
I definitely will. This has been so much more than just learning about weaving. It's been about understanding my place in the world.
It's a big question.
And my connection. To everything and everyone.
That's the beauty of a good metaphor.
Yeah.
It helps us make sense of these big, complicated questions.
Right, to see the patterns in the everyday.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for guiding me through all this.
You're very welcome.
I feel like I have this whole new way of seeing the world.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And remember, we're all weavers in this big adventure called life, so go out there and weave something beautiful.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah.